don't start a project, or at least not with us.
It's very good.
And what we see with a lot of companies, that they have beautiful stories, beautiful plans, but they don't materialize because they don't have the content and they don't have the marketing power.
They do say about entrepreneurs, isn't it, that they sometimes have failed 20, 30, 40 times before they finally kind of get it right. But people only ever talk about the good. History is written by the winners, right?
Yeah, it's a hard message. But sometimes you have to do that to protect yourself, because if you dive in with your whole team, then a lot of energy has been wasted and it has been very frustrating for everybody.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the GCS Connect Leaders Series. As ever, we're speaking to leaders within our network. Today we've got Cees van Versendaal, who is the COO of MwareTV, which is an ERP for the telco and broadcast industries. It's a startup that started in 2013 and has grown exponentially globally throughout the world ever since, and we're proud to work with them from time to time. Cees, very interesting guy. One of the things I really enjoyed that we had in this conversation is when we talked about understanding different cultures and selling and dealing with customers in different cultures. It's not something I've ever really specifically thought about before, but it's definitely something that Cees kind of opened my eyes to. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like doing the Leader Series, is you get to speak to interesting people and learn interesting things. So here's an example of that happening. Enjoy. Cees, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, David. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. And yourself?
I'm very well, thanks. Today, yes, it's we're in April when we're recording this, so just about to have Easter. And it's looking forward to that. It's always a nice break in the UK. So I don't know whether it's a big thing in Holland where you are, Easter.
It is normally we have in Holland we have 2 days of these kind of holy days, I call them. So
Sure.
First and the second one. The first one is on Sunday, and Monday is always the second Eastern day, as we call it in Dutch. And it's also a free day. In other countries, Friday is of course very important.
Yeah, we get Good Friday off. You know, that's
Good Friday, yeah, exactly.
My wife's favorite day of the year. She says it's less
Is it
stressful, less stressful than Christmas. She says so. Yeah,
it's absolutely true. But Friday here is for some parts of the country, it's an important day.
Right.
The more religious oriented people. But for others, it's just a working day. So it's a bit of a mixture. It's not that like in other countries, very black and white. Hey, it's a bank holiday, everything closes. So it really depends on the company or the people and the area you live.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I know. I don't know how religious we are in the UK anymore, but I think it's more about the chocolate these days. So yeah, I'll go with the chocolates.
True.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, it's great to have you here, Cees. And I'm really trying to say, because I'm sure people will see. So it sounds, if you've got English people here, they'll probably be thinking to themselves, he's saying the name wrong, but I'm actually saying the name right, aren't I, Cees?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
We do a lot of international business, and you see different cultures that they pronounce it in a different way. So then in one call a long time ago, we suddenly said, okay, it's case like business case, suitcase, sometimes beauty case. And from that moment onwards, that became the joke, and everybody remembers. So,
You're the business case. Fantastic.
yeah,
What would you say the etiquette of that? If someone is saying your name wrong, do you think if it's a customer, you should just deal with it and crack on, or is it best to kind of say, hang on, no, it's actually Cees?
No. Actually, I don't care. As you can see in the Netherlands, we have a lot of family names that has the little word in the middle. The middle. Some countries they call it the middle name. It's actually not a middle name. It's like a connection word.
Right. Okay.
It's a case from and then a certain area or whatever. And a lot of people call me not Cees but Van or Mr. Van or.
Oh, right.
Actually, I don't care. If they feel comfortable by doing that, then it's fine. And then maybe in a call they will learn that it's a bit different. But one point you're right. Actually, these days more and more people start the conversation. Hey, how should I pronounce it?
Yeah, and that's the right thing to do. I think I'm quite lucky in David. Pretty much everyone knows how to say David, but my surname being Bloxham, I've never met anyone that can actually spell my surname. You always have to spell it. Because it's just unless you actually like you hear Bloxham, and then I've had all sorts of strange ways of trying to kind of give this name right. So it's great. And I think the reason I ask these questions about how you might deal with, customers and talking to people is obviously one of the things I'm quite kind of interested in for yourself, Case, and your kind of roles and the different roles you've done is obviously your role, and we'll talk more about your role itself, is quite customer facing. I believe your how you deal with customers, how you build these relationships, and how you help to grow your businesses in terms of being that kind of link person between someone who has the customers and also can talk through the technological. So I'm just quite interested in, before we cut, as we start, how you've built up that experience over the years of dealing with customers and working with customers as a leader. You're the guy that's kind of talking to people and leading those kind of conversations, really, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, it's true. So when we were a small startup, I was also involved in the sales part, and then every salesperson manages the implementation of its own projects. And then we became bigger, and we separated the functions from, let's say, dedicated sales oriented people and more implementation operational people. And we decided that within our team that I took the second role. So yeah, I'm quite familiar with, let's say, the whole process before contracts are signed, and before you start, let's say, real implementation and getting things to work. Um, we have learned that it's important to, let's say, to be involved. So salespeople are very good to get the relationship going, and then slowly a project will, let's say, be defined. But we have learned that it's good to be involved in, let's say, in the end of that stage, and to ask some detailed questions and say, have you thought about this, and this, and this, or do you have this? To first of all get a better understanding from our point of view, but also the customer gets a better understanding about what he needs to start such a service. For us, it's all bread and butter, but for them, it's pretty new. Starting TV and VOD based services. Um, it's not always, the salespeople are not always happy with it, because it could be that you ruin the deal, to be honest,
Okay. Is
because
that
it
because you
could,
have to
oh,
be the you have to be the bad guy?
yeah, well, sometimes it feels like that, yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. The customer said, yeah, but I didn't expect that investment. Or so you can, on the one hand, you can say, get them in, get them up. So then once they start, you can help them. On the other hand, if they're a little bit more professional companies, you really have to prepare them for it. And then the contract is signed, and then normally the contract is handed over, and then we do a kind of second kickoff, as we call it. And then we're going to really rediscuss the projects. And quite often we see that the real project they have the real project they want to do is different than what they have told to sales so far. Yeah, that's our target group. No, no, but we want to do this target group, and we don't want to do this, but we want to do that. And yeah, we said that we have all the content available. Maybe I should tell a little bit about what Ember is doing, then it makes more sense.
Yeah, that was
Um,
obviously we've cooked in, but it'd be great to understand kind of the Mware product, just for our kind of listeners' benefit, just so they can really understand kind of what types of customers you're dealing with.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, but let me first finish the story, and then basically we redefine the project, and then we roll out to get everything done. So, um, and you have to live with that. If they have changed their mind or their understanding is better, and you have to redo the whole plan. Yeah, that's part of the business, but it means that it will take longer than what they expected previously. Um, so it's not a big deal. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I will tell a little bit more about it because of our business model. But yeah, and what can you do? Um, Back to Emware. Emware is a software company, and we have I developed what I call an ERP system for TV and video-based business. It means that you if you're starting a company and you have to run your financial administration, you can do basically two things. You can buy a package, off the shelf package that fits with your goals and meet your requirements, or you develop something yourself because you say, "Hey, it's so tailor-made," or "I don't believe that anybody can deliver what I want." We do the same for this type of TV and video on demand type business. So we have let's say, a platform, a modular, what I call a modular platform with all the elements you need to run a TV service or video on demand service and other media. But those two are the most important. And what does that mean? So think about Netflix, for example, or think about your local a TV provider that provides you VOD or TV services, and you get apps. So you get content on the screen. You log in. You get content on the screen. You stream the content you want to see. So basically, we offer everything you see on the glass of your device and everything behind the scene. So basically, a total ecosystem to run such a service. So people like our suite of software suite, or not, or they say I want to build myself because I know better, or I have very custom deals. Fine as well. But the advantage of our approach is that people can start very fast, just bringing your content, your marketing, and you're up and running. No 1 to 2 year development cycle. And second, we have thought about 16 different devices where your service will run on. Android is different compared to Apple devices, compared to Samsung and LG smart TVs, compared to all those different devices have their own under the hood operating system, and they all work in a bit different way. And we have taken care of that. So once you have your content and you have prepared your marketing, then basically you can be up and running in about 6 weeks and start the growing your service.
And is this I mean, this is we work a lot in the broadcast market, right? So it's something that we at GCS feel very kind of confident in. I know you guys have worked with GCS and the Innovation Hub a little bit. But you talked there about getting your TV station going, and I'm just quite kind of interested, is this something that happen? Are people setting up TV stations a lot? Is this something that happens on a regular basis? I mean, like you said about Netflix, there you've got the different streaming services, but I guess as it becomes easier to enter the market, there becomes more and more niche TV channels.
Well, let me clarify it a bit more, David. We are on the distribution side, meaning that the content is produced by someone, and maybe an aggregator is in between to bundle it. The operator our customer, the operator makes deals with them, and we integrate it in the platform to be sure that the end result for the consumer is an interesting portfolio of all kind of content sources. So we are more on the distribution side than on the content creation side, which you are basically in if you want to make your own TV channel.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of is allowing these companies access to the different kind of services that they can actually put their content out there.
Yeah, so you have a lot of solutions in the market where you can create your own TV channel out of video snippets, stuff you collected, prepare your channel, and then you start to distribute it through all kind of channels, no matter if it's the social media, or you sell it to all kind of operators, or you start your own business to consumer service. But that what I call creation and pre-production, that is basically a separate step from you're more like a publisher than you are a distributor. And you see with the Netflix type of company that they're a little bit, not a little bit, actually a lot on both sides. They produce their own content and they distribute it exclusively themselves as well. While if you go to your local ISP or broadcaster, TV cable company, they basically collect a lot of contracts from all kind of broadcasters, bundle it in a package, and sell it to you.
Yeah. And what I'm quite kind of interested in is obviously again, we work a lot within this market, and there's huge technological advances. And for a business like Mware, and for someone like yourself, who's obviously controlling, like thinking about the business strategy, how do you stay on top of that? Even if I believe, right, you started in 2013 with Mware, or Mware started in 2013. And as a small growing business, I'm assuming you started off to say, right, we do this, right?
Yeah.
But what's quite interesting to me is, obviously, unlike maybe in recruitment, which is pretty much the same, the actual technology and the way that the people consume the technology and the way that the industry works has actually changed beyond all recognition in the last 12 years. So, my first question is, I'm assuming that what you set out to do to start off with is maybe different to what you do now. Is it?
Yeah, that's true. It's a nice example. When we started, apps didn't exist. You only had setup boxes, and we cannot imagine it anymore. But you only had setup boxes, and no matter if they were a cable box or whatever. So it started with the vision that the fixed cable networks, which are basically a push mechanism, in the future will change to a more interactive way of consuming content. And actually, that's where we are, still middle in that transition, because you still have pushed the live TV channels, but in the meantime, you have big VOD libraries. You can watch replay or catch up type of services, which basically is also a kind of interactive service. Um, so you see that, and next to that, exactly. So you see it on one hand on the content side that people consume, and the services that are offered, and on the other hand, you see that the devices from one set-top box expanded to, let's say, well, as we support about 16, 17 at the moment. But if you see what's happening in the smart TV world, where you see new operating systems coming in with different business model, it's still growing on that end at the moment. And every time, and then answering your question, every time you see the trend, or I call it the potential trend. Of course, the trend from set-top box only to multi-device watching was obvious. That you can watch it on your tablet, or your phone, on the go, whatever. Internet becoming better and better to stream VOD content and video content. So that trend was obvious. Um, um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every device is immediately a success. You need a certain, let's say, market penetration to make it feasible to immediately implement new devices. So quite often we do that customer driven these days. So of course, Android, iOS, the smart TVs, that's all pretty standard and have large install bases. But sometimes people come with a complete new smart TV or a new device, as recently we had one. And then if there is a real business case on the customer side, yeah, then we will try to implement them as well. So we see the trends, we prepare ourselves for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we always want to be on the top front by always saying, hey, we support every new device that is available or every new content feature, because it doesn't make sense.
Well, when you kind of it's interesting what you said earlier in your role as COO, is that sometimes people are selling things. I mean, you almost have to be the kind of the wise guiding hand to say these are the right contractual, or you have to go in and really understand what they want. You know, in your role as COO, is that something that you feel, it's almost that you need to be as striking that balance between the two sides, between sales, between technology, between the customers. Your job is as that kind of middle person to make sure everything works out for what the customer needs, can achieve, can afford.
Yeah, can achieve, can afford. Absolutely true. We have one of our was a unique selling point. You see it now more often, is that we have a kind of pay-as-you-grow model. So you don't have huge upfront investments to get started. But if you get more subscribers, your license fees will in the end go up as a total package. So if you are successful, we are successful is always our slogan, or one of our slogans. But then, of course, the customer should be successful. And what we see with a lot of companies that they have beautiful stories, beautiful plans, but they don't materialize because they don't have the content and they don't have the marketing power. So we are very, especially the last year, we are very, very keen to really dive in that particular aspect. Do you really have your content? What is your marketing plan? Because one mail shot or one social media post is not enough to get your eyeballs on your platform. And if it's a bad plan, then we say we're not interested, or we charge you different fees to get started. But even then we say we don't do it. It's better that you find another company.
And that's sometimes a risky, it feels risky, doesn't it? You're coming from myself as a salesperson. You've obviously done sales as well. So kind of say no to a customer sometimes is like the worst thing that it feels like you could do, right?
True, that's true. That's true. And of course, as sales, you have to you have to be a little bit opportunistic, and be positive, and try to get customers on board. I have quite often more realistic approach, but that's a little bit my nature, I think. I don't believe everything everybody says. And then with the three of us, if we evaluate those customers, yeah, then pretty soon we say we don't do it, especially if they have no access, don't have access to a subscriber base or no content, and they require in the same time a lot of software development they would like to have to be added to the platform to make their plan work. So basically, they see it as a free lunch. Okay, you help me with the content. Maybe I will do the marketing. You have to develop a lot of things, and yes, I will be successful in the future. Well, you understand that type of free lunch. Yeah, we have tried it in the past a couple of times, but we have learned our lessons that we have to be much more, yeah, direct to them, saying, guys, fine, but that will never work. We have seen so many different projects around the world with different kinds of plans. It's not realistic. Forget it. You don't have the money to keep your operation running for a year, because the first year you don't make money. First you have to invest, then to cover your costs, and then to make profit. Uh, don't start a project, or at least not with us. Yeah, it's a hard message, but sometimes you have to do that to protect yourself, because if you dive in with your whole team to get such a customer up and running, and try to make him successful, but in the end he's not even able to pay the minimum bills he has to pay to keep his platform alive, yeah, then a lot of energy has been wasted, and it has been very frustrating for everybody. And then it's better to be honest at the front door, instead of at the end you have to kick them out of the back door.
Yeah, and I guess for yourself that's coming from learns and challenges that you've faced over many years, and mistakes that you've made. Like, I assume.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
and I assume as well that probably you have conversations where it felt almost kind of you were working against yourself. But when maybe a client's come back to you, or customers come back to you in a year's time and said, look, I really listened to what you said, made these changes, and now actually we're ready to go. Have you had that sort of kind of almost happy ending? You strike me as a very truthful man, Case. So if it was me, I would say, yeah, definitely, loads of times. But
No.
I think
There's not an immediate name
yeah.
that pops up in my mind.
Mm.
What we see, we generate a lot of leads through our online campaigns and website, and on events, and then through some system integrators and sales team. So we track everybody, and what you see, especially in what I call the startup phase, companies that have an idea and maybe a little bit of money and a market idea, like you said, a niche market or something, that that we see often that people try it multiple times. And how can we see that? Because they start a new company, or they invent a new name or a new brand. But of course, their email addresses, like on Gmail, and the phone numbers remain the same.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
I
you
say,
know this
oh,
person.
hey, there's David again.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
see
right.
what he is up
Here he
to.
is.
And then you
Yeah.
recognize the name, because like your name, you can immediately, if it comes in your database again, you say, hey, we have seen David before. Let's check. So that you see a lot, to be honest.
I mean,
Yeah.
they do say about entrepreneurs, isn't it, that they sometimes have failed 20, 30, 40 times before they finally kind of get it right, but people only ever talk about the good. History is written by the winners, right? Isn't it? So
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, we had our lessons as well. Yes, of course, of course. Yeah, because sometimes the story is good and you start, but then in the end, it's so in the early days. I remember a lot of people say, "Oh, money is not a problem." To finding investors, for example, finding investors is not a problem. But it's hard to convince an investor to put money in your plan, to put money on the table to make your plan run. So if people say that, then they are not realistic anymore. But in the beginning, we said, okay, that's true. Let's give it a try. But then 99 out of 100, it never became a success.
and I guess you need investors at different points as you go along. So you might get a seed investor, and then it kind of goes on, and then you need more investment. So you have to kind of keep ticking boxes as you go along, don't you? I guess.
As an operator, yes, because you have to quite often you have to pay for your content rights, fixed fees or growing fees. You have your platform up and running. You have to pay for your team and your marketing, and then you have, of course, your churn. So yes, absolutely true. However, we as a company always did it without any external funding, because we want to be as free as possible and don't have VCs knocking on your shoulder saying you have to do this or that. And we see that happening with some of our suppliers that are suddenly sponsored, I call it, by VCs, and suddenly they drive the business, not the business people anymore. So very short-term oriented, very cash oriented, which I understand, but that kills a lot of deals.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that independence, isn't it? It's because you're growing your business to be able to kind of follow your dream as opposed to the dream of your backers or investors. And I'm
Yeah.
quite interested. You've talked quite a lot there about your point of view when you kind of look at startups, you look at new businesses as they come in. What do you think was the secret elements? Because obviously Mware is a successful business now, been going since 2013. What do you think were the key elements that you guys had? I think there was 3 founders, wasn't there, that set it right, that was correct.
Invest a lot of your time and money in the beginning. So that first phase to get your first customers running, and then with the first ones, pamper them as good as you can. Maybe let's say help them beyond what is a normal expectation, to be sure that they are successful. Generate your business, generate revenue for you, and then slowly grow your business step by step. Actually, so not a VC route that you get a lot of money, big marketing campaigns, and try to get big teams and spend a lot of money. Now, really slowly growing step by step was the success for us, where we are today.
What were the key challenges that you kind of came across as you moved through these phases, do you find?
I think you addressed it before. Learning by doing. That's one thing. Being willing to stop something if it doesn't work is hard, because if you believe in something, but sometimes you have to change the route you're going. Another one I wrote down is learning the cultural differences. Although I worked for Philips for many years in international business, also there we had to learn that the cultural differences are huge, and even more we learned that here in Embraer as we do business around the world. In understanding each other, in really understanding each other, and when a deal is a deal, is in a very interesting part of our business these days, because you can believe that you have a deal and a project, but suddenly somebody has to sign a contract, and then people disappear and they don't even answer the phone anymore.
So when you talk about cultural differences, you mean like between doing business in different locations and different countries and different cultures.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. And for example, if you compare even the Dutch people with the English people, one of my friends recently said, "We as Dutch people, we talk English, but we don't speak it." Meaning that the subtle differences between the things between the lines between our two cultures. Uh, um, where if in England somebody says, that's interesting," meaning it's nothing, while we see it as something positive,
That's
or
actually
that you have,
interesting. Yeah.
yes, or
I,
that you, if they want to give you feedback, they first give you three positives, and
mm,
then the last part of the sentence is the negative.
mm.
But then we don't hear that anymore because the first three things were positive.
It is funny. I've done a lot of business in Holland, and I love dealing with Dutch people because I always feel that Dutch people pretty much tell you in a quite polite way the exact facts. Like there's not a lot of I always trust Dutch people in to say the actual situation, if you know what I mean. But also I always find, I mean, maybe this is just me kind of stereotyping Dutch, and I obviously am, but also always quite calm as well. Dutch people are quite calm about stuff. They don't generally get too worked up. We talk about cultural differences now. That's my impression of dealing with Dutch people, is always quite calm.
In a lot of other cultures, okay. I don't know if you let me give you a nice, maybe a nice hint for the listeners. Um, we came across a couple of years ago of a book called The Culture Map. And the Culture Map is written by Erin Meyer, and Erin Meyer is a professor at INSEAD. And she collected a lot of studies about cultural differences in doing business, and she turned it into a model. And for, I think, 8 criteria, she maps, let's say, all, well, not all, but let's say all the countries around the world, and then you can compare them. So, for example, the Dutch are known to be very direct, while if you talk with Asian people, they never say no, and they were very polite. So then you see that we are on two extremes of the scale. Um, we will always tell a CEO that's a bad idea, but in the end, if in other countries people will never do that because it's a top-down business, a top-down management style. So people never say, "Well, the boss has a bad idea," because they are too polite to say that. Well, if you take those 8 criteria and you can map them in a little tool she developed, and then it's very interesting to see how and it's all relative to each other. Right? So if we take a project with the Dutch, the English, and for example, the Asian people, a country from Asia, then you will see that we are very close to each other, but the Asian are on a very other extreme. But if you plot our two countries next to each other, you see the differences are quite big as well. So it's very interesting to see if you have a multiple cultural project. We have a team around the world, and you deal with projects that quite often also has more team members from different locations. It's very interesting to see how that behaves. And then the Dutch are quite often seen as to being too direct, and we immediately say, "Oh, I think it's a bad idea," instead of giving you the 3 positives and then saying, "But there's a little but." So,
I think it's fascinating. I've done, I think we've nearly done 100 episodes of this now, and I've never had this conversation. But everything that you're saying is, I mean, we have a global business, right? And I know that different countries, different cultures have different ways of working. Obviously, when you're like, obviously working culture is driven by compliance and legislation, but also just how you've been raised, educational standards, etc., and I've never actually heard it being put out there. It's obviously something that you think about, I guess, because your industry is very much based on culture. It is a cultural thing, TV broadcast itself, but also you're dealing in a global business, right, with different decision makers in different cultures.
yeah, I think the second part is because I think it's equal for every business. If you Google the book, I will send you the link later on. It's a very thin book, actually, so it's very easy to read.
That's good
It's
for
not
me.
a
That's good for me then, Case. So
no.
happy to.
Well, I hate because you can also have academic books, that are
Mm.
300 pages and you will never read it. So this is very easy to read and to understand, and then combined with the model, it's very interesting. So I think it's independent of the business. That's one thing. So it's more the generic cultural differences between countries. Um, and sometimes in projects, we even make such a plot and put it on the screen to explain our customers that we come from a different culture, that we are very direct in saying if something doesn't work or is wrong or whatever. But that's not because we're negative, but that's because it's our culture, and that they shouldn't be afraid to tell us the truth as well, which is in the beginning, of course, scary for them because they're not used to it as well. But it works quite well to address that particular aspect, because if you understand each other better and you understand the cultural um, background of people, then in the end you get a better working together relationship.
I'm fascinated by this, and we will definitely put a link up to the book, and I'll definitely be buying this book for myself because I think for any CEO, any leader across cultures, this is a really important thing to think about. I always think that when we deal in America, I always find that Americans generally are quite friendly. When you talk to them, right? Their initial reaction, particularly to English people, probably to Dutch as well, was, "Oh, I love your accent," and you talk to them and that sort of stuff. But that doesn't mean anything, does it? That basically they could like what you're saying or not like what you're saying, and I usually find they're very polite to you, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they will never talk to you again, and sometimes they will.
Sure.
But they will treat you
Absolutely.
exactly the same with the exact same level of politeness. But in our cultures, I think if you're being polite to someone, that means you like them. Whereas in the US, I find that everyone's polite to you until they're not.
Well, in a couple of years ago, we spent a lot of energy in trying to enter to get traction in the US market. Um, and we learned not only in our own direct sales approach, but also through all kind of lead generation company, no, not all kind. We did a test with a couple, that the experience of all those marketing companies was that you need at least 10 to 20 attempts to get in touch with someone to at least get a response. So mails, calls, LinkedIn message, whatever you can think about, those whole tool suites you can think about that exist in the market, you need that to at least get a response. And I see that myself as well, that you see those kind of automated processes that they keep on spamming you. And if you get no reaction, they're not interested. But in the US, it's different. They are interested and they need it. But yeah, they don't care. They will respond when after you have tried 10 times. So, and then again, it's polite, you exactly like you said. Um, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do business. Absolutely true. Yeah. So, but it's learning the hard way. Eh? In the end, you can read the book, but in the end, it's in the day-to-day operation that you have to see how it
Exactly,
yeah
and
rolls out for your business.
that's why we have the Leaders Series podcast to learn from experienced leaders like yourself, Case, who can tell people things that they've learned along the way. So the other question I had was, obviously starting as a startup and building your business with your co-founders. I guess you've got long-term goals, where I want to take the business, right? But you've also got what I need to do now. So what's your thoughts? I'm always quite kind of interested in how you kind of balance those short-term goals with your long-term vision of where you want to get to at some point. What do you think that your best advice is to try and balance those things as you're growing a business within the market?
Yeah, a couple of things from us, from our experience with MwareTV. We our team decided long time ago. It's no, maybe a little bit in a different way. This whole internet-based TV technology is relatively new. Yeah, in the old days it was cable networks, etc. So what we have done is after every, let's say, call it 4 years, 3 to 4 years, we have reinvented ourselves by completing building our ERP system from scratch. not because we liked it, but because you would like to learn, you would like to improve the stuff you have developed. Of course, you have new trends you have to adopt, but the main reason is that there is a lot of new technology available to make things easier for yourself, easy, scalable, faster development cycles, etc. So every, let's say, 4 years, we started completely from scratch, migrated our customers, and that's where we are today. That we are still running on the latest technologies with all kind of advantages like fast innovation, easy scalability, a low cost of a low TCO, low cost total cost of ownership. That's one thing, and that's painful because something that runs fine, you would like to keep it running, because and then grow, but you have to do that if you would like to be able to innovate to the future. That's one thing. Second thing is, stick to your plan, keeping an ERP system like we did. Don't jump on every short-term financial opportunity because it will take so many resources that it will kill your business. In the end, three, don't jump on every new trend. In our business, you see every year a new buzzword, and everybody jumps on it. But we have said, okay, what does it really mean? Yeah, we have to keep it in mind. We have to see what it can mean for us, but not immediately implement it. Because it can work in the US, but doesn't necessarily mean that it runs around the world. Um, and we see that a lot of companies come to the table and they try to sell services with these kind of buzzwords. And then you see that they believe they can make an awful lot of money with a very small service in a total stack. And then you say, but you don't have a clue about the total cost of ownership for our customers. So instead of you thinking that you can charge $1 for a service, which is, let's say, 1% of a total platform instead of cents. And then you see suddenly it's not a business anymore. So we have seen that with recommendation engines, advertisement driven sales, as TV channels, that are all examples that are partially successful, but not everywhere. AI is a new thing at the moment, the big buzzword. I think we should talk about it as well.
I have heard of it, Case. You know, I think at least 9 out of the last 10 episodes have been about AI or people doing it. Do you? I mean, what I guess what you're saying there is, with your system, you know, how much do you double down within AI, bearing in mind what you said before about not just following every single trend, you know, by making sure you're sensible, because that's the thing that comes across to myself, Case, about yourself, is that you're quite sensible about these things. So what do you truly think that it can help to help build your business?
AI, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the first thing we saw was what I call AI washing. That a lot of algorithm-driven solutions suddenly became AI solutions, which are basically not AI solutions. And because it's just an algorithm running. So that was on the last events and exhibitions, we saw a lot of AI washing, we call it. We also saw with our customers, which are more in the telco space, that they did a lot of investments in AI, but the latest reports show that they're not able to make viable business cases out of it. Because in the end, to run AI, it's pretty expensive. And with all the tokens you have to buy to do certain things. On the other hand, the third thing is that it's going very fast. If you see all the tools coming to the market, and so we started with where could it really add value in our solution, and we have addressed. So we start developing, replacing, for example, manuals, which is very side business, or improving manuals with AI technology. Um, we are now implementing a couple of new call it features and functions that really try to use the advantages of AI, um, but not immediately redoing. Yeah, sometimes redoing stuff you already did, but very careful. And again, immediately calculating what does that mean in our cost structure and in the cost structure for our customers. I can come up with beautiful tools, but if they are too costly in the end for the end user, for the operators, our customers, to implement them and to pay for it, yeah, what then it doesn't make sense. So learning quickly, hire people to do that in house. Don't benefit from external companies, but step by step. And then maybe we are a little bit late, but at least we do something that will really add value for our customers and for our company.
And I guess that's more the kind of the Apple technique, is to let other people do it wrong and then come in and do it right. Although their AI function isn't, they haven't quite got there yet. From what I can see, with regards to
No,
Apple
true.
Intelligence. So
True. But the idea, I think, is right, that you try to learn from the others and do it better. But that's also with in general, besides AI, is that in the end, if the users of our customers, the operators, use a service, in the end they want to watch a video or they want to watch a TV channel, and that should work flawless. So yeah, we learn. We look a lot to the others, and they say, "Hey, that's a good idea. That's a idea that works," and then we implement it and then make it available for everybody. So yeah, we are most of the time not the number one saying, "Hey, we have now something unique that you absolutely should have." No, absolutely not that.
and so therefore, when you look at like opportunities, where do you what do you identify? Because obviously you think a lot about these types of things, and from this conversation, I can really see that there's always strategy about the decisions you make. So how do you identify something that you feel like this is something that we should really like focus in on? This is a good direction for us to follow.
Yeah. Well, what we see is actually happening in the market right now. A couple of things. We see a couple of external funded companies disappearing because they, in the end, were not successful, so they stopped. Uh, that's interesting for us because that gives opportunities. Second is that we see that of course watching television is not new. We do it for a very long time. So we see a very large audience, customer base operators that jumped on that wagon a long time ago, but are now at the end of a technology cycle. And if they really would like, and of course they, in that technology cycle of the platforms they use, they add bits and pieces, and maybe they had a couple of plasters to keep the whole thing rolling. But in the end, you know that there's an end in that game because it becomes so complex and so costly to maintain that they have to start over. And there we see a lot of appetite because also the competition in the market. In the early days, you had one or two providers per country. Now you see many. So also there is a more sensitivity to total cost of ownership. That all those people now have to jump to the next generation technology, which is state of the art today. And there we see a lot of appetite from those companies to learn what we bring to the table. And suddenly you talk a complete different ballgame because they have ecosystems you have to transfer. They would like to completely replace large groups of audiences. Um, but they know that their existing suppliers cannot provide it because they are basically stuck in the legacy world.
Yeah, it's about providing a kind of a safe and thought out kind of strategy into the new world rather than throwing it all out. I was very interested in what you said there about almost like reinventing yourself every 5 years. Is that did you get that from another kind of business thought? Is that something when you were starting the business you said, right, this is definitely something we should do? Or how did that because again, that's not something that people talk about very often. It sounds like a complete nightmare, to be completely honest.
It is. No, to be honest, it's driven by our. I think it's mainly driven by our CTO.
Sure.
Because he's responsible all the software development, and you start with the concept, and then you, of course, you make it work, you improve it, you enhance it, you add a lot of stuff. But exactly like I just described about our potential customers, there is a moment that you say, "No, I cannot do anymore what the market asks for," and I see so many new interesting technologies that will speed up our future development and capabilities to implement certain requirements that will come on the table. The tools that come on the market to develop, for example, the apps on your devices, the tools and platforms that come on the market to scale your business compared to the old days and even 5 years ago, that is going so dramatically fast that if you want to benefit from it, that you have to do that. So there is a moment that suddenly, not suddenly, but hey, we are entering a moment that we have to start rethinking our fundamental concept based on the latest technologies. So it's basically because we face the same like our customers face, but then as we have to maintain all those systems, we said it's time to do to restart again with all the frustrations it will get, but you have to. So it's driven from the technology team, to be honest.
Brilliant. So as my final question, I think it's been a very fascinating conversation. I feel, as ever with all these conversations, but I feel I've learned a lot here. What are your for the business of MWare? What are your key priorities now as you continue to shape this path in this challenging world?
Yeah. Yeah, keep an eye on all the, of course, on all. If you look to successful startups from the old days, it taken 10 to 15 years to really jump through the roof, and we're in that process. And so like you said, a lot of things with startups you don't see because it's all behind the scene, and suddenly we see the successes. We're in that phase at the moment to really benefit from all the hard work we did and all the experience we built in the last I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years. And because we have seen it all, and in the meantime we are open to new technology. So we're in that stage, and managing that in the right direction with my colleagues is I think the biggest fun, to be honest, to make that happen.
Brilliant. Well, Cees, all I can say is good luck. I think, as I said, we've learned a lot. I think definitely with this kind of the culture book, if you can send me over the link, I will definitely be putting that up in the post and definitely be reading that myself. So you learn something new every day, and that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast. But thank you very much for your time. Good luck with the business in the coming months and years, and have a lovely day.
Thanks, David, for the interest. It was fun to join the conversation. Actually, the first time I did it, a podcast. So
you're a natural Cees. You're a natural.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
It's very good.
It's always. I always hate to hear my own voice later on. So, but anyway, thanks for the interest, David. It was a pleasure to join, and I talk to you later.
Thank you very much.